Welcome to Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. And today we start with a wonderful song from the new show, Like Clockwork.
I'm done with these glances I saved for his eyes. Done with repeating that no other guy knows me like he seems to know me. I wish he would show me if he could only be done being continuously unaware, glancing at me when I wish he would stare, holding my hand like a brother and not like a lover. Another day I would keep waiting, endlessly chasing, fighting the way he sees me. It's way too easy to be lonely when he is the only thing I'll ever need. So until he wants me, I'm done. I'm done with the fear that it could be the end. If he asked me to be more than just friends, so scared it won't go as planned. If he showed me his hand, why can't he understand? I'd be done with the company I've had to keep, consisting of solitude, sadness and me. I would cast them all away if he'd slightly betrayed that I led him astray from his waiting, endlessly chasing, fighting the way he sees me. It's way too easy to be lonely when he is the only thing I'll ever need. So until he wants me, I'll be drifting in that big blue ocean. My eyes are open, I'm hoping to find someone attainable. It's hopeless, I already know this. Boat is sinking, falling, calling it a day if he won't have me. I know I can't be endlessly waiting, constantly chasing, fighting the way he sees me. It's way too easy to be lonely when he is the only thing I'll ever need. So until he wants me, until he wants me, I'm done.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits, and I frequently be compared with Stephen Sondheim, Jerry Herman and Charles Strauss, but always unfavourably. Well, thanks for coming back again to Musical Talk, and we continue this week with our trawl of some of the things you could have seen at this year's Edinburgh Festival Fringe. Today we're going to hear about 3 wonderful shows, and you're going to hear 5 more songs, so it really is a song-encrusted evening. Song-encrusted programme, as a strangulated tenor might have it. Well, we've got a lot to get through today, so I'm not going to muck around anymore. I've already wasted a good couple of minutes of your life. I hope the rest of the programme will be much more productive to you. So, first up, we're going to be talking about that new show you've already heard one song from, Like Clockwork. It was a wonderful, upbeat, enjoyable show, and it was that rare kind of thing, an uncynical show. It went in with the wholesome ambition to entertain, and that's exactly what it did. So, let's hear another song from its score, which is called The Will, and then after that we'll hear a wonderful conversation with one of the people behind the show itself, the very lovely Dominic Howlett. So, let's learn about Like Clockwork.
Dear Grace, if you're reading this, I've shuffled off my mortal coil. I'm dead and buried in the soil. My goose is cooked, my bunny is boiled. the dead to tell you what this letter said, what's racing round inside my head. And if you're reading this, I must assume that you're quite smart, so let's forego the heart-to-heart and tell you what I must impart. I bequeath unto the chronometer of such immense cranial capacity that it makes Nostradamus look like Quasimodo in direct comparison. Huh?
My name is Dominic Howlett. I directed the show, and I was one of 2 writers. And the show is like clockwork.
And that's what it's called.
Yeah, like clockwork. Yeah,
of course, it does go like clockwork.
Yeah.
You'll see it. Well, tell me a little bit about the history of Like Clockwork. Is it a new piece?
Yeah.
Have you been developing it over the course of years? You know, it feels very fresh, very enjoyable.
Oh, thank you.
It's a very enjoyable piece. So should lay that down first.
Oh, wonderful. So essentially, I've had a history of writing with my co-partner, a guy called Tom Martin, phenomenal musician, funniest guy I know, and essentially we've done a lot of things. We were in school together. And so,
so it's a childhood friendship.
Well, yeah. He's one of my oldest friends, actually, and we were in a band together for many years, and so we've always been doing this music thing. Throughout the sort of friendship, we sort of developed into musicals. We thought, we do music all the time. It's
a well-trodden path.
Exactly,
I can assure you.
Yeah. And so we were like, this could be really fun. Where should we try out some of this stuff?
Yes.
And Fringe was a natural hub of creativity, and we were like, let's go to Fringe. Let's try this.
So when did the idea come about for Like Clockwork? It's a very particular piece, isn't it?
It's odd, isn't it?
Yeah, but good odd.
Oh, thank you. Essentially, we were looking around Fringe. We were like, there's all this wonderful, quirky stuff.
Yes.
It's fantastic. And we were like, we want to do something in that vein, in that sort of ilk. But we know that there's a lot of shows out there that aren't necessarily suitable for children or aren't suitable for different... And we were like, no, let's make the most inclusive show we possibly can. So it's literally open to anyone. It's family-friendly. And we were like, we wanted to keep that wackiness, but give it to the masses, essentially.
It's sprightly, I think, is the best term for it in a way, actually. That is meant absolutely as a compliment.
Good.
So do you want to briefly explain the plot? At least without giving anything away.
Yeah, it's quite an odd plot to explain. Essentially...
Yes, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. Essentially, there's this girl called Grace, and she lives in this very messy, very untidy apartment with her flatmate Joe, who is the cause of all the mess.
Yeah, it's a bit like The Odd Couple in that sense, isn't it? One neat, one untidy, but it's cleverer than that. So go on.
And basically, she has this aunt who you never actually see, but she used to talk to herself, and she was clearly the subject of much discussion among her friends and family. And she sadly dies and leaves Grace her best friend, who, as it transpires, is a magical talking clock.
And, why wouldn't that be the case?
Exactly. And so, essentially, the clock comes along, and he just tries to help out Grace, sort out her life, and
If we like, it taps into actually a long tradition of storytelling, which is either the invisible friend, we have Harvey, the invisible rabbit, and all that kind of stuff.
I love Harvey.
Yes. Or Jiminy Cricket in Pinocchio. There's this kind of the unseen voice on the shoulder. So would you say these are influences, or would you...
Definitely. Especially stuff like Aladdin as well is another sort of famous story where you've got this magical companion that kind of comes along and helps out. It's a nice little story, and it's nice to sort of try and find a fresh take on that idea.
And you can make the invisible character as strange or as wonderful and as weird or as wacky as you like, can't you, as well? Because, in fact, that adds to the comedy element. I mean, let's be honest, this is a comedy.
Yes.
As you say, it's a very easy access. I mean that in a very positive sense, easy access comedy. So, yes, there's nothing to offend anybody.
No.
But actually, it's got its own little... it has its rhythm, if I may say. What's lovely about it is, almost immediately, I think, as an audience, you get the tone. And once you've got that tone, you know precisely what you're in for. We're not looking at deep insights into the human psyche here. I hope I don't in any way underplay what you're saying. But what you do get, a little world and a little episode within that world, which is then played out for the good because of the wackiness of, if you like, the fourth character in the room, in this case, this talking clock. But I quite like the characters as delineated. So let's talk about the central characters first.
Okay.
By which I mean the flat sharers.
Yes.
So in many ways, the person who owns the flat,
Grace,
is almost the everyman.
Yes.
She's the most normal person in the room, and the lodestone around which all the adventures occur, in a way, isn't it? I mean, that's a traditional thing. But you've avoided making her a cipher, because she has an I want, and she has a character of her own. I also like the fact that, she opens with a song about how mildly irritated she is about the messiness of her flatmate, although she loves him and adores him.
Yeah.
That undersells it, actually. You know, it's an affectionate... I mean, she does love him, but it's there's a huge amount of affection.
Oh, definitely,
And you can see they're mates, actually. You can sort of see that immediately.
They actually shared, funnily enough, the actors, when they were preparing for the roles, actually shared an apartment together.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
And do they turn out to be Mr. and Mrs. Messy or tidy? Or
I don't know. I never
and
actually...
method were they?
Yeah, I don't know.
Fine. Oh, that's very interesting, absolutely. And then you've got Joe.
Yep.
Who is a little bit put upon, really. He's I think you'd have to call him as a sort of charming... I'm not going to call him an underdog, because actually he's his own man, but he's easily put upon. I'd say the actor gives him a great deal of energy. He's very
he's wonderful,
very
isn't
light
he?
on his feet. So much energy, and there's that where he jumps up and down, and he does pratfalls, and he's a bit of a... You can't sort of take your eye off him when he's running around. Actually, he's
It's fantastic. Is it? We actually wrote the... he sings a song called... Well, we just call it the law song, actually.
Yeah.
And it's essentially where he's putting his law degree on trial for crimes against humanity. And we actually wrote that song after we knew he was playing the part.
Oh, so it's tailored for him.
Yeah.
Because he flips from what the prosecution to the defence to
Yeah.
the judge in very different broad brush ways to delineate it within the story of that particular song in its own right. But he acts it all out as well. He's bouncing around the stage. The complete opposite of what a court would be, in fact.
No,
Actually.
yeah.
It's very, it's not a stately, formal environment, is it? So
Which is probably why he wouldn't make a very good lawyer in the end.
Yes, well, that's true, and he is saved from that. I don't hope I'm not ruining anything by saying that. And then we have Pym.
Pym.
A very unusual name. Now, do tell me that Pym is a real name and not just being used to rhyme with...
not
for a rhyme.
Yes, she's perfectly proper and perfectly prim, perfectly pretty and perfect for him is the rhyme that we said. No, Pym was named after, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, the drink, Pym's.
Oh yes, of course you're allowed to say. We're an independent podcast.
Oh,
absolutely.
wonderful.
They may even send you a bottle, who knows.
But essentially we were trying to find her character completely, I don't know if you ever read them, the Jess Williams stories.
Oh, by Richmond Crompton.
Yeah.
Yonks ago, yes, absolutely.
There was a character called Violet Elizabeth
Yes.
that I just absolutely adored as a child.
Spoilt brat.
Spoilt
the
brat.
epitome of the spoilt
Yes,
brat, in
and
fact.
she'd do that wonderful thing where she'd go, I'll scream and scream and scream until I'm sick, and I can, and I was just, I thought
That's
that
her
was...
grown up, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
and so that's inevitably what she'd be if...
And she's possibly the least pleasant person in the cast,
Yeah.
isn't she? In terms of character.
yeah.
Not as an actress.
No,
obviously.
she's lovely.
Quite right.
Yeah.
But because, she's picked Joe because she sees potential for high earning in him.
Yes.
So it's not really a love match at all,
No.
is it? In fact, you almost wonder how they got together.
I wonder that every day.
But she's supposed to be, well, she is a very attractive woman, so I suppose there are payoffs.
Yes.
If that's your bag, absolutely. And then, of course, we get down to the clock. Or time itself.
Time itself, the physical embodiment of time itself, yeah.
Now, what I like about the actor playing him is the fact he brings a very different level of energy and a very different kind of comedy. The way he's written, or it seems to me, is that he can't decide. It's pathetic comedy, isn't it, with the B, in the sense that sometimes he's this grandiose, august, slightly pompous, I am the embodiment of time.
Yeah.
And then he'll immediately slip into, I've fallen off a beanbag kind of thing. And that actually is the Kenneth Williams school of acting.
Oh, really?
In Carry On films, there's a great deal of, I am the august character. Oh, but look at that. Oh, slipped over. That kind of thing. I love that kind of performance. I love that. Yeah, and he's a man, he's a bigger man. He plays a big character. He puts in the boom, and then he sort of completely pulls the rug away from himself. And that's such a comic trick. It's such a clever thing to do. But it's a very different energy to, say, Joe's sort of bounce around energy. You have Grace's sort of demure suffering, if you like, and Pym's imperiosity, I suspect, is probably the best way of putting it. So that's quite an interesting... It's a four-hander, isn't it, in that sense? And so all the comedy plays off it. So it's actually a good character comedy in that sense.
It all comes from stuff that I loved as a child. The pompousness, I loved Dad's Army. And so it was Mannering, and it was that pompous kind of thing, and that's where we kind of got that from.
Because you can be lovably pompous as well,
Yes,
can't you?
yeah.
That's quite a hard trick again.
And then there's like a reference to my favourite book that was The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know if you picked up on that. There's some in some of the lines he says, and it's just all like coming together of everything I love. And
It's a fusion of cultural references. I like that. Yes, absolutely. Although some of them are more subtly hidden than others,
Yes,
I may say,
yeah.
of course. Yeah, because it's an original piece in its own right. I mean, you mustn't undersell yourself. I mean, we're all some of our cultural references. But actually, as I say, sprightly and buoyant is where it goes. So, but tell me a bit about the score. Principally rock and roll.
Yes.
In a very easy, accessible. We're not talking death metal thrash kind of. No, we are talking the more kind of the kind of thing my parents would have danced to. Actually, I'm afraid, and your grandparents. So.
No, it was rock and roll. It's something that it all came from the pun clock and roll.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were saying it wouldn't,
This isn't a wind-up.
No, hey!
You see what I did there?
The amount of clock puns that are going around, they're fantastic. Yeah, so we were like, oh, wouldn't it be great? And then we'd have a piano solo, and so we did a really interesting thing with the soundtrack, is that a lot of people here, they play it live, and that's fantastic. It's so cool to get live music. But we wanted slightly more control, like a bigger band.
Yeah.
And so we actually went into a studio and we pre-recorded a lot of the stuff. And we...
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
And you were therefore able to multi-layer it? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so we brought in an amazing... so my friend Tom Martin did a lot of the composing. And he and I worked on the lyrics together and the music. But
he's your co-writer, isn't he?
Yeah.
Your charter friend.
But we brought in one of our other friends, phenomenal musician. The guy is just incredible. I can't sell him enough. His name is Dino Brewster, and he...
Sorry, is that Dino?
Dino, yeah.
Oh, explain it. Not Dean.
No. His name is Dino.
Fantastic.
I know.
He's already a jazz master.
Exactly. And he came in and we kind of gave him this, and he did this wonderful thing where he just paused and went, and then just, like, without saying anything, just went over to a bass and just started, like, he went, yeah, no, this should be the bass line, and we were like, yes, it should. And so he is behind a lot of the interesting orchestration, which and he also we were just in the studio, and he burst into the room and went, guys, I found a harpsichord. And we were like, okay.
Do you know, I want to live that life. Where you can burst into a room and shout, I found a harpsichord.
And we were like, okay, we're having lunch. I don't know. And he went, just give me a microphone. And we were like, okay, go, be free. And so he's added a real harpsichord into the Law song.
It's a kind of funky harpsichord, but of course that plays into the character of that song, doesn't it? Because you think harpsichords, you think ornate formality, and courtrooms, of course, are that formal environment. And yet, of course,
I was
just going to say briefly, the harpsichord had a brief sort of revival in the 1960s, being used as a kind of semi-funky instrument. I mean, the best example of that is the 1960s films with Margaret Rutherford playing Miss Marple. She has something called the Miss Marple theme, which, if you don't know it, you must look it up, because it's by Ron Goodwin. It's a marvellous piece of music, but it's essentially funky harpsichord. Because it ties in with her kind of sort of... formal, I was going to say dainty, I'm not sure Margaret Rutherford is ever dainty, but the kind of character of Miss Marple against the swinging 60s background of these films, because they're updated. So anyway, forgive me, the harpsichord is fantastic.
That's all. I love the harpsichord. When I first heard it on the track, I was like, "It's amazing." So yeah, he's behind.
It does give a rich extra layer, doesn't it? Yeah.
And things like, we were so lucky because we just had so much at our disposal, because we were working with the University of Nottingham. And they just let us go in and run riot around their studio for
you are lucky.
For a week, yeah. And so we were using things like Steinway pianos and...
So nothing but the best, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're so glad we did that, because it's just got that... You can just tell it's real instruments.
This has not been knocked up in someone's back bedroom or anything like that. No, exactly. There's a richness to sound recording, and there's a richness of the sound that's coming out from the instruments you've used. It's a remarkably full sound. Yeah. And it really adds to the effect as well. But let's talk about the songwriting, because This Man Sounds Marvellous.
Yes.
His arrangements are very good, because it's very palatable. You know, rock isn't everyone's cup of tea, or it's such a broad church these days. There's so many different kinds, but it's very edible rock, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And I don't mean seaside rock. But the songwriting itself, now that's quite difficult. You've obviously got a sort of simpatico working partnership, and that's fantastic. I'm guessing the way you're talking your friend is more the music and you're more the lyrics.
Yes. Well, it's a nice sort of he kind of comes along and he'll write the melody, and he'll sort of come up with some mock lyrics, and he'll go, oh, we'll go, and then we'll go da 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 da, and we'll go, okay, and then it could be this or that or. And then we sort of had...
But that sets the lyrical footprint, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even if you don't use those lyrics.
Yeah, definitely.
Not everyone works that way. Sometimes the lyricist is the navigator of a new song, and it can be quite difficult. Whereas actually, if someone's setting where things might sit and the scansion...
I can't stress enough that he also writes a lot. In fact, he came up with my favourite line, which is, my daddy's Mr. iPlayer, he'll fix it on demand. Which I thought,
which is sung by Pim, isn't it?
Yes, so, and that was the product to him. Just, I think he he burst into, again, lots of bursting into rooms in the history of this.
That can only be enthusiasm.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of came down, I think he was about to have a shower and just ran down and just went, like, I thought of a lyric. I just got the guitar and was like...
I had nothing to write on, as I was in the shower at the time.
And so, but we kind of come up with lyrics and we sort of go, oh, is that funny? And then we'll sort of test it out on our friends, and if they laugh, then we'll know it's okay, and if they don't, we'll go, sort of walk away shamelessly.
But I think you undersell yourself to a degree, because I'll tell you what, because I go back to character comedy. Character comedy, this comes from the book, actually, for which you're responsible too. You know, jokes are fantastic, and if a joke works, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't, and that's good and bad, and you can kill it or keep it, whatever you're going to do. And there are good comedy laugh lines in it, but actually character comedy is a lot harder thing to write, and you've written 4 good characters who bounce off each other, and actually the comedy comes from the enthusiasm or relationship or suppression of emotion, whatever it is, but actually... You know, the clock is a kind of sort of... I'm actually wagging my finger. It's a kind of in-your-face misses.
He's doing it very well.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes. Well, if you ever need a recast. I've got a completely round face, so it would work, wouldn't it? No, unfortunately, I have a face that stops clocks. So it's a very subtly different thing. But seriously, you know, that character has a degree of getting away with the one-liners, actually. The other character's a bit more character, although he's a good character for place. That comes from the writing.
Oh, thank you.
So, you deserve that. How did you... I've got to ask. You know, you said you came up with Clock and Roll as an inspiration, but coming up with a one-liner like that, and then coming, I'm pointing to your chest, because the logo is on your T-shirt.
Yes.
Which is a fab logo, actually, by the way. It's a very smart silhouette, that. But... you know, how did you grow to develop that story?
So essentially, do you know originally the clock was never supposed to talk?
Was it not?
No.
Right, okay.
It was always, originally it was going to, just all these funny one-liners would appear on its face.
Like LCD display.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh, right, okay.
And so we were kind of going, oh, this will be fun, and it will just interject every now and again, and it wouldn't really be a character. And then the more we kind of came up with,
it's almost like a Greek chorus. It was commenting on what it heard rather than being involved. Yes.
And we sort of, but we came up with so many good lines for the clock, and we were just like, oh, and then we were sort of, but we how would we get the timing of that right? And then we were just
ironically,
and then we were saying, no, the clock has to talk. And then for some reason, I don't know why, in my mind I just went, he should wear a white suit and he should have cogs.
Yes, he's got a little cog lapel badge thing going on, doesn't he? Yes.
Yeah, and
which will also explain why he's completely cuckoo.
Yes. And for some reason, I don't know, that character just sort of came to me, and I was like, this is what he needs to be.
So did the embodiment of time himself actually land in your head? So you're communing with the eternal forces of nature.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing better than I am.
And so from there we kind of developed. We went through different characters, and we were like, oh, maybe they go to work, maybe they could do this, maybe they could do that. And then we were like, no, let's just set it in an apartment. Why make it difficult for ourselves? Why not just explore the characters rather than the locations? Because so often you see like a show and they go to a different location, and they spend time setting up the location with an hour show.
Who can do that? Yes, quite.
And so we were just like, no, let's set it all in one place. Let's have the opening song set up where they live, and also set up the character. It all comes from. I would herald the Little Shop of Horrors, actually, as the perfect intro to a musical, only because it literally starts with the opening song, or second opening song, actually, and you know everything you need to know about the characters straight away. Seymour comes in and says, poor, all my life I've always been poor, I keep asking God what I'm for, and he tells me I'm not sure. You know exactly what you need to know about him. And I was just like, no, let's one of those. I love that. So they come in, they each have a little section, and then it sort of comes together, and by the end of the opening number you should know where they are, why they're there, and how...
And the interrelationships, actually. Yes, quite absolutely.
So that's all born out of my love for just how precise and how wonderful those kind of songs are. And
Oh, well, forgive me, that's good craft, if you don't mind me saying. But also, so then are you one of these people who writes the book first and then says, actually, we're going to replace this section with a song? So you knew in your head how that would work, and then were able to transform it with your writer?
The book definitely came first. And in fact, the book came before the jokes.
Good, it should really.
Yeah. And so there was wonderful moments when in the script when the producers and funders were reading it, where it would just say "insert joke here," and they would be like,
You need to work on that.
Yeah. And looked very disapproving at me. I was like, "It'll be funny, I promise."
Yeah.
So,
Lucky, forgive me. I mean, there's a long tradition in the old days. There were so many for pantomime, British pantomime. There were certain scenes which were traditional, and you inserted them into plot, whatever the story was. And you can, if you buy old pantomime scripts online, quite often you'll get to a page and it will say the tipsy tree gag. And then you just move on. And if you don't know what the tipsy tree gag is, that doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah.
You need to have been 50 years in the business, darling. And you go, so actually, that kind of almost the insert for the appropriate time is not an uncommon thing.
No,
but brave to do it in front of your funders. So
yes,
well done.
I know. And the other thing that I found really interesting is just watching it develop, because the script we have now is very different to the one that we originally gave the cast, and it was just wonderful seeing the way that they interacted with things and the way that they sort of read lines. You go, oh, actually, that's right. That opens up a new. We could explore that slightly more. And
well, a good actor, if they're actually embodying the character they're playing properly, will actually be able to take that character further. Because forgive me, you're the father of 4 characters here.
Yes.
But they're allowed to concentrate on one, aren't they?
Yes.
So they can take it a little bit further and draw up backstories and carry it in a way.
But it was just wonderful, like little moments in it where we're properly introduced to Pim for the first time when she comes back in, and there's a little moment between them and stuff. That just happened organically, and it's wonderful to see that they've embraced the characters so completely that they understand the little mannerisms that they might have, and it was just wonderful watching it all come to life.
It's ticks and tricks, isn't it?
Yes.
Real people, I suppose. Absolutely. So you're pleased with it, I hope.
I love it.
And how's the response been from the audience?
It's
They
been
enjoyed
good.
it today.
Yes, yeah. No, it's been good. It's fantastic. It's such a big space. It's so nice when there's a lot of people just to fill it, and just the cast get really pumped behind it and stuff. It's lovely.
And are you on the mile every day?
We're on the mile every day.
Yes, of course. It's a slog, isn't it? How do you find the Edinburgh experience? I mean, is this your first Edinburgh?
No, it's actually my second.
What were you last year? Was it last year?
It was last year. Again, my friend and I had another show up here. That was different, drama, very
not
serious.
A musical.
No, it was a musical, but very serious. Well, it was sort of
Play with songs.
Play with songs
Yeah.
was slightly. It was like Once almost, if you've seen that.
And what was it called?
It was about musicians. It was called Streets.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see it on the road.
No, it's a shame. But it's been completely different. It's much funner, or much more fun.
No. Shakespeare made up words.
there you go.
You're a writer.
It's much more fun doing a comedy and marketing a comedy and family show. We've been doing this wonderful thing where we've been turning our flyers into little paper hats and giving them out to people. So that's been nice.
Yeah. Well, it's been so sunny. It affords one protection as well.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit about your musicality. Is that
Yes.
your sort of brand name? Is that
Yeah,
correct? That's right.
yeah.
So you have worked on this show in conjunction with the University of Nottingham. I think you said. But what is musicality? Is that just you and your co-writer?
Oh, no.
No.
Musicality is wonderful. Musicality is essentially, it's the University of Nottingham's musical society.
Yeah.
So they come out and they do a show every year. So last year it was Anything Goes.
Oh, right, okay.
The year before it was The Producers. The year before that it was Phantom. And
Gosh, these are big shows, aren't they?
they're fantastic. Like, a lot of money goes into them, a lot of effort, but then we also do smaller cabarets and stuff, and then we're really experimenting with Fringe. I mean, we've only been up twice, but we're hoping to sort of bring it's spectacle on a budget is what we're hoping to
Good
bring.
trick if you can do it.
Yes.
But the real spectacle is actually delivering a good show with good performances and good songs. Well, you've delivered in spades, if I may say.
Thank you.
First of all, there have been hints about recordings and things like that.
Yes.
So, first of all, do you have a website, or how
We
can
do.
people find out
We've
about
got a Facebook.
this?
We've got a Facebook page.
Tell me about the Facebook.
The Facebook page is literally if you just type in "Like Clockwork" into the search bar, you'll find us. It's got a wonderful picture of everyone but the clock, actually,
right.
in the space bar. We wanted to. He's got a wonderful face.
And you wanted to keep it a surprise?
I wanted to keep that as a surprise.
As you
yeah.
expect a club to have, in fairness. But
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, so just find that, and that way you can keep up to date with all our goings on. So our Facebook, our soundtrack recording.
Which is going ahead?
Yes.
Good.
There's a little documentary about the making of.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, which will be going up in September.
Sounds good.
And we might possibly be turning it into a short film. So...
Do you know, it feels like it could be. It's got, because it's suitably chamber.
Yes.
So actually that will work very nicely without breaking anyone's budgets, as it were, as well.
My background is actually in film. In fact, the first musical that my friend and I made was a musical called The Atomic Pumpkin.
Well,
and,
why not?
Yeah,
Yes.
and it was a short film.
And is it online or anything?
I don't actually know.
Do you think it ought to be?
It won a series of sort of short film awards.
Well, then yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and then we just sort of let it go. I don't know where it is actually.
Oh right. Well, forgive me. You don't mind me saying you need to set yourself up a website.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you really do. So the best way for people to contact you is via Facebook?
It's via Facebook,
Fine,
yeah.
Because people might be interested to hear more about this, because it's a very easy show to stage as well, in some senses. Isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, and the other thing is you wouldn't need a full orchestra. You could do it. We've got the backing tracks. If anyone wanted to do it, they'd be welcome to.
Splendid. I think you should really consider getting yourself out there, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you.
Well, to conclude, thank you so much for bringing the show up. It's been lovely talking to you as well. And I do hope that, I hope I'll see you again in future here in Edinburgh with new material.
I hope so too.
I'm looking forward very much to hearing about the soundtrack, because I would like to get a copy.
Wonderful.
I'm your first customer.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, well, thank you very much. And
Thank you.
We'll speak again soon. I
Yes,
hope.
wonderful.
Let me introduce myself, I need no introduction. You are the puppets that obey my every instruction. An omnipresent, omni-awesome force. I am the clock and roll emperor, and I'm laying down the law. You can only go forwards into the mystery, but look backwards, cause I teach you history. You can't go sideways if you're going forwards too. And you don't mess with time unless you're in the groove. Yes, it's true. I tick tock, tell you what to do. And you know, I tick tock, tell you where to go. At the moment that you stumble into life, I hit up the reaper when I think your time is nigh. I'm older than religion, so you might say I'm divine. They just like Jesus, cause he gave them all free wine. I'm the decider of your fate, and I think I'm pretty great, cause I always make you wait, and I often make you late for a date. That's an 8, I dictate, I debate, I navigate, I arbitrate, exhilarating you, frustrating you. I'm not your mate, but you don't hate me, one to excommunicate me. I dominate the centuries and the decades and the years and the days and the hours and the minutes and the seconds and the milliseconds, microseconds, nanoseconds, picoseconds, clock and roll, it's true. I tick tock, tell you what to do. And you know, I tick tock, tell you where to go. I created weekends, but also weeks. I created New Year's and New Year's Eve. I created millennia and GMT. I created you, and you belong to me. You know you do. Yes, you. And you belong to me. Yes, it's true. I tick tock, tell you what to do. Oh. Yes, it's true, you know. I tick tock, 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 tick tock.
And there we are, a third song from Like Clockwork called Clock and Roll. Well, it was mentioned in the conversation, and with a title like that, how could we resist playing it? My thanks to Dominic, by the way, who I know has gone all out to make sure that those quality recordings of his songs were available for this programme. And from my part, it was wonderful to hear them again. And he is charm itself. I look forward to more work from him and his collaborator. And what did I think of Like Clockwork? I gave it 4 stars and called it accessible and fun, a charming comedy for everyone. Sprightly. Well, what next in our rag bag of things that came from the Edinburgh Festival Fringe this year? Well, the answer is a one-man show about a one-man talent. That talent being Cole Porter, one of the great writers from the golden age of musical theatre, and of course a man who wrote both lyrics and music. And a good subject for a one-man show. And so it proved when I went to see the show called Michael Griffith's Cole. And in the show, Michael plays Cole Porter in both senses, in that he acts the role of Cole Porter telling his own life story, and of course he plays Cole Porter's songs as he does so. Michael had been touring the show for some time, and so it was already highly polished when it arrived in Edinburgh. Michael was immensely busy when he was up at the festival, so I was very privileged to be able to catch at least a small amount of time to talk to him about his show. So let's hear from Michael Griffiths now as we discuss his show, Cole. Musical talk.
Hello, this is Michael Griffiths. I'm performing nightly at 6 p.m. in the Piccolo.
Well, you are here as, and in a show called Cole Porter, one of the great musical theatre writers of the 20th century, a man with a great legacy. How did the show come about?
Look, the show actually just sort of came out of thin air. I'd been doing a couple of 80s tribute shows, one about Madonna, one about Annie Lennox, and then another biographical show where I just sang lots of like new romantic songs by a-ha and Duran Duran. And
You're
I was
far too young for the 80s.
No, I grew up in the 80s.
Well,
but I started listening to pop music really early. I fell in love with pop music about age 6, and yeah, in fact, Eurythmics were my first love. I remember Sweet Dreams coming out. I would have been, well, I was born in 74, so I would have been not quite, or maybe it was 9. It was about 83, wasn't it? And I was doing a festival in Noosa, and someone that saw me just suggested I should sing Cole Porter. They thought it would suit me, and it happened to be the partner of an author, Anna Goldsworthy, and she just said, "Oh, yeah, I'd write you a Cole Porter show," and it really, that's how it happened. It certainly wasn't my idea.
However, if someone suggests the idea and then offers it to you fully developed, it's rather a splendid option, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, that was an offer too good to refuse. We ended up collaborating pretty much quite closely, and it took 6 months of quite a lot of work, especially for me because I have to play the bloody thing. So it was a lot of finger training because they're complex, especially after playing pop songs. These are far more complex, and I have great respect for them.
Well, I suppose my question is, how far do you go back with Cole Porter?
I'd never sung or played a song of his.
Had you not, really?
No, I'd sung Night and Day only as a singer. I hadn't played it. I didn't know a single song to play. So it was 6 months of like everyday playing.
I'm actually quite surprised at that, because you looked pretty much to the manner born, really.
Well, that's a year of doing this show a lot. It didn't look like that a year ago. A year ago, it was sort of like grit your teeth and smile and just forgive every mistake, of which there were plentiful. But a year on, I'm feeling really confident with the show. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting as well because it's got a lot of sly humour in it as well. I mean, forgive me, there's a lot of references to songs which you don't use either musically. You might have you underscore some of your own dialogue with intros or chorus or refrains from various songs without singing them, and then move into another song.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of references to song titles. You know, you mentioned 50,000 Frenchmen Can't Be Wrong, 50 Million Frenchmen Can't Be Wrong, which is one of his really early shows. And, are you finding your audiences are knowledgeable enough to spot that, or is that just for the people who want to spot it?
I think ideally the script will work to the beginner who it doesn't matter whether they recognise those references, as long as, I mean, the storytelling takes the forefront. But then if you were a Cole Porter diehard fan, and to be honest with you, there were references in there that I don't know because I didn't write it, and my writer has a photographic memory, and so she would have done research, and then, you know, so she's cleverer than me. And as I say, I had to learn these songs, so I'm and I don't know any songs beyond what's in the show to play, because I literally have just learned the show.
Oh, you haven't yet got the canon at your fingertips?
No, and people are constantly telling me, oh, do I know this song or that song? And unfortunately I don't, because as I say, I'm new to this. It just feels good and I love it, but I'm certainly not a reference for him. And I don't even know all the references. But hopefully it works on those two levels.
Well, that's good in a way, though. I mean, you don't want to mug the references, so perhaps, if you don't mind me saying, you're not spotting them all is quite helpful, because they are there purely for the people to fish out if they want.
And I approach it, at the risk of sounding really indulgent, but I'm just approaching it as an actor and trying to make sense of the story. So certainly you don't want to, I mean, there are a few references I know, of course, and some of the musical references, but it's really about the sense of it. Even with the songs that you know well, sometimes it's about finding the sense. Like, I never realised Night and Day had this melancholy in it, except, its torment won't be through till you let me spend. Like, there is melancholy, and things like that hadn't occurred to me until you really jump into these songs, but they're richer than they first appear.
Well, he's the lyricist that Stephen Sondheim sort of most admires.
Yeah.
And Stephen Sondheim tells this story of sort of besting Cole Porter when he wrote Together from Gypsy. It's the line where, because apparently he played his original lyric to Julie Stein's music to Cole Porter.
Yeah.
And it's the triple rhyme, which of course Cole Porter was so good at. For the joke purposes, which you'll know from as a craftsman and a singer of it. It's the line that goes amigos. He said when he did the first rhyme, the second rhyme, and then he goes amigos. Wherever I go, he goes. Wherever she goes, we goes.
Yeah.
Amigos. Apparently, Cole Porter gasped because he didn't see it coming, and
to
this day, Stephen Sondheim sort of, that's his moment. That's the day he knew he'd inherited the mantle, if you like.
That's a great little moment. I haven't heard that before.
But I'm really interested in what you're saying about the complexity. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying compared to the pop idiom, but forgive me, you sing and you play.
Yes.
You are very talented in that sense, and you do it very smoothly. But so, can you explain a little more about the complexity from your point of view, both presumably lyrically and in terms of music?
Well,
or is it the meaning?
I think mainly the struggle or the work was in the complexities of the music, it's very chromatic. It changes minor and major key, which is a bit of a signature, a motif of his, is major and minor dichotomy.
He also puts it in every time we say goodbye.
Yes, he does. It's self-referential.
It's actually mentioned,
which is lovely. But it actually appears through Love for Sale, just from no reason, goes from minor in the first verse to major in the second part of it, and that happens a lot in his music. But it was really approaching just this sophisticated piano accompaniment. But the lyrics actually were easy to learn because they make sense, they're clean. And the lyrics I didn't find hard to learn, which is a testament to their craft, because they go in. And not all lyrics do.
No.
As a singer, I know that some lyrics, you need to just sort of find whatever tricks you... But Porter lyrics go in really easily. That's a blessing.
Well, yes, of course. You don't have to... Well, because they're sophisticated, actually, aren't they? They are, Irving Berlin, bless him, writes these really simple songs. Cole Porter songs seem to me to have a level of sophistication and knowingness. So you do have to perform them. It's interesting to me that you see yourself as an actor quite rightly, because every song tells a story. He tells these stories very clearly, so you have to perform them. But they have levels of sophistication which you need to bring out.
Yeah.
You're also very good, if I may say, of giving the audience a knowing nod, as it were.
Well, it's a bit saucy.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, the thing too that's a delight with this show in this time is that we can talk about all the things that just couldn't be spoken, and that are in. What someone wrote about my show a while back. Oh, it's a pity that Porter's tunes aren't biographical at all. And it's like, well,
really?
I beg to differ. I think if you look, there's a real strong sense of his character in so many of his songs, and there's devilishness that he has, this wickedness, and it is there, and it's lovely to be able to now talk about his male lovers, but the fact that his wife was his confidant and best friend, and I think
his Plymouth Rock.
Yeah. And I think it's not about mocking that marriage; it's about acknowledging that marriage and love and friendship and are very complicated, as they always have been and as they always will. But thankfully, in 2016, we can acknowledge that gay people in marriages, it's not necessarily an empty, hollow marriage. And so it's lovely to acknowledge those things that he couldn't because of difference in time.
You're absolutely right, because society, and he was a man of society, wasn't he? He was actually someone anyway. You're absolutely right about that. And yet, I consider him to be one of the most overt writers of the period, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you know the song The Croupier? You said you don't know that many beyond his...
No, I don't.
I tell you what's fantastic about The Croupier. It's
Yeah.
a 2030s number, so it's definitely pre-war.
Yeah.
And it's overtly gay. It's about a woman who falls in love with a croupier. It has
Okay.
2 verses. So she falls in love with a croupier, and he recommends that they're playing roulette. And she votes the wrong colour because she's unlucky in love. I'm unlucky in gambling and I'm unlucky in love is how the refrain goes. The second verse is she's so in love with him, head over heels, she takes him to the cinema to see Lionel Barrymore, I think, someone like that, who was a heartthrob of the period. And so she's trying to connect with him and saying, she says, I took him to cinema and I said, I like John Barrymore a lot, do you? And I said, because he's clearly not listening to her, I like John Barrymore a lot, don't you? And then the joke is the lights go down, and when the lights come up again, she says, I saw he liked John Barrymore a lot.
Yeah, right.
So, it's an overtly gay reference, and there's no other way of reading that. And that's a strong lyric for the 20s and 30s, and I think that's very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were lots of places that song wasn't allowed to be sung.
Very possibly.
Hollywood was always wanting to censor things that, far less blue than that.
Well, it was a show song rather than a film song.
Yeah.
Now, you portray Cole Porter very nicely. You come on with a stick because he's post-accident.
Yes.
And you speak very well in the show, if I may say.
Thank you.
And forgive me, you look the part. Your hair is exactly as it
Well,
looks.
I've grown it just for.
Well, you've got it just right, and you're wearing that very nice sort of double-breasted jacket. So
He was a bit of a dandy, I think. He liked to dress a little bit outrageously. He was more florid than some of his contemporaries. You see pictures of him, very colourful.
Gently flamboyant.
Yes, I don't even know if it was gently. I think it was just flamboyant, actually.
So, do you find sympathy with your understanding of Cole Porter as you perform him as an actor?
I think I have to, because if I didn't, then it wouldn't. I think an audience, you need to want to spend an hour with the person in front of you.
Yes.
And so I have to be sympathetic to him because that's my job. So there's no, I can't judge him. And to be honest, the way I feel about him outside of the show, I think he probably was more difficult and more prickly than maybe I portray. But for the sake of this hour, it's about celebrating his songs, and it's also about, the structure of an hour show. So certainly I think he needs to be sympathetic. But I know that later on in life, with his cane, if someone wasn't giving him diction at rehearsals, he'd wrap the cane and without even speaking, because they weren't enunciating enough. And I think that's also coloured.
Everyone's on the lookout for good diction.
Yes, well, I certainly wave that flag in that I want everyone to hear every word, because I know how important it was to him. But so I think he certainly could be prickly, but also he was dealing with daily pain, and you need to also remember that there was a lot of misfortune in his life, so it is easy to be sympathetic.
Can I ask a question? Because historically he's often, and I don't know if it's fair, but he's often sort of partnered with Noel Coward in the sense that they were both sophisticated men writing similar kind of songs with clever, sophisticated lyrics, a certain brittleness sometimes, although I think Porter is a bit more playful sometimes. And of course they were great personal friends.
Yes.
And of course, luckily for them, they have first names that rhyme. The number of plays called Noel and Cole.
Of course.
You play him very well, and there is that sort of class thing going on. But I suspect if someone came in, they could think, why are you playing him as Noel Coward? Is it? I mean, it's very unfair, because I think you're very clearly playing Cole Porter as an American, not as Noel Coward as a Brit. But there is that parallel. Do you ever see a parallel?
It's not intentional. I know people are often asking me after the show, was he British? And I say, no, he wasn't British. He was Filthy Rich. And so Filthy Rich has its own sound that is not bound geographically. And certainly in my show, it's always fast and class and dance, which is not the British way of saying it.
No, there's no romance.
But, no, of course. Although British, but fast would be, obviously. I mean, romance is non-negotiable. But I mean, to me, it was just the sound of privilege. And I mean, if that makes him sound like Noel, then so be it. But that obviously, or that wasn't something I'd intended.
Oh no, I think it's purely involuntary, but I think it's because they're so often paired together that people sort of naturally do.
Oh yeah. Oh well, they were cut from the same cloth in many ways, weren't they?
They were in many ways. Although once again, Sondheim has something to say on that. Sondheim doesn't like Coward, and he does like Porter.
Yes.
And he says the intent is different. He says Porter genuinely was of that class.
Yeah,
and therefore there's affection. Where he says Coward wasn't of that class.
Yeah,
and therefore
right.
there's a slight satire. But,
Yeah.
you know, for a lot of British people, we quite like that, poking of fun. But there we are.
Yeah, of course. I'd never thought about that. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I also like the fact, and I think this is rather nice, you actually play a Cole Porter song with Cole Porter singing in a record on as your introduction. It's the
Anything Goes?
No, it's
you mean the pre-show
busted,
music?
Yes.
Oh, that was the Physician. Was that what
The
playing?
Cocotte, actually, I think is what we came into today.
I have a rather long pre-show playlist, and the boys, my front of house boys, started at a different spot every day, so I couldn't tell you what was playing. Often it's Love for Sale, but it wasn't today.
I think it was the Cocotte.
Right.
And so it's interesting to hear Cole Porter's, because no one really knows what Cole Porter sounds like,
No.
because most people haven't heard those records.
well-
They are quite obscure.
They are, and he certainly sounds very clipped and British and kind of quite thin. I mean,
Yes, yes, it's not a great singing voice.
No.
Yours is much better.
I have heard him sing, and I do let that colour some of my singing in the show, and then sometimes it's about just doing the song justice and dispensing with characterization, but I do try to colour when appropriate his style of singing, which is, yeah.
But you have to be yourself first, because it's not an impression, it's an evocation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you do that so well, it's very nice. This show has been massively successful before it came to Edinburgh, hasn't it?
Yes, in Australia it's been very, very well received, and I couldn't be happier with it. Yeah.
And how's it being received here in Britain?
Look, people are really warming to it. Last year I was here with the Lennox show, and I knew this would always be not as broadly appealing, but people are seeking out a Porter show as opposed to last year where I was, just had masses of Scottish people wanted to hear the National Idol songs. So it is a gentler year.
Is still a living icon where Cole Porter is now receding into history as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is much more niche, and it's just so sophisticated too that it isn't, it isn't as accessible.
No.
But it's lovely to keep doing it because I still
possibly lovely as you make a great play off.
Absolutely lovely. Yes.
So, how can people find out what you're doing, Michael?
I actually just have a artist page on Facebook that I always put what I'm doing. So that's just Michael Griffiths.
That's the best way to find
you.
Yeah,
you like that, and then you'll find out where I'm going next.
So my last question then, if I may say, is when this is over.
Yep.
Hopefully it may go on somewhere else.
Yes.
But the best thing to do is follow you online to find out.
Yeah.
But what will you take from the show? From this particular show, once the dust has settled?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I don't know. Maybe I'll take that a bit of confidence in my ability to act because I swore to my writer that I couldn't, and that I couldn't do an accent because I hadn't before. And my writer said, Anna Goldsworthy, she said, "No, Michael, the only way this is going to work is if you act and you say an accent." I was like, "No, Anna, I can't do that." So maybe I'll just take a bit more confidence in that side of things. But I mean, obviously, I will take an incredible reverence for this incredible body of work, and I'm sure there's another Porter show with obscure songs. People sometimes criticise me for doing the obvious ones. Like, well, that's where you start. You can't do a Cole Porter show and not sing Night and Day or Let's Misbehave or Anything Goes. Like, yeah, and we're not trying to be clever. We're just trying to be, explore his character, and I think we do.
But you would explore the rest of his canon privately, perhaps.
Oh, look, maybe there's a Cole Porter B-sides and rarities show in the wings.
Well, if you do, there's one song you really ought to include. It's the earliest song of his, which is still widely available. It's called "It's Nice to Know You're Never Far From Home," and it's the only Cole Porter song I'm aware of where he only wrote he wrote with someone. It's a collaboration.
Oh, you're right.
Which
okay.
is so rare.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's news to me. That's
1919
fascinating.
or something like that. I think
that's
he wrote
early.
it when he was at his college. So
yeah, wow.
They were
fascinating.
Michael, thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
talking to me, and so thank you so much for the fantastic show.
My pleasure. Thanks, mate.
Musical talk. There we are. That was Michael Griffiths talking about his show, Michael Griffiths' Cole. And at the end there, you heard me talking about that song that Cole Porter wrote with somebody else. The song's called I've a Shooting Box in Scotland. And it's appropriate that we spend just a minute or two talking about that song, not just because it's a very unusual one in the canon of Cole Porter, in that it was a co-written song right from the beginning of his career, but also because it was performed on Broadway a century ago in Cole Porter's first professional show, which was called See America First. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great success as a show, and it only ran for 15 performances. But 2 of its songs were recorded in the very early days of gramophone recording, and one of those songs was I've a Shooting Box in Scotland. So if you want to hear at least an instrumental recorded on the 8th day of January 1917, just after the show closed, you can do so. It is available online, and a jaunty little number it is. And there's a much more well-known version of it, sung by Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire, although they did dabble with the lyrics ever so slightly. But what of the song itself? Well, it was actually written for a show called Paranoia, which was a Yale revue. And that's where Cole Porter and his collaborator, somebody by the name of T. Lorison Riggs, wrote for their fellow students at Yale University. And that was performed in 1914. And such was the promise of that early collaboration that they worked together to take a show to Broadway, which, as I said, was called See America First. Sadly, it really didn't last more than just about 2 weeks, 15 performances, and its failure resulted in T. Lorison Riggs giving up show business entirely, and I believe going on to become a Catholic priest, so really exchanging Saturday night performances for Sunday morning. But here's the confusion. In the show See America First, the book was written by Riggs, but the songs are all attributed purely to Cole Porter, not Riggs and Porter. And if you look at that record from 1917 I was talking about, which was recorded by the Joseph C. Smith Orchestra, it also says that the song I've a Shooting Box in Scotland was written solely by Cole Porter. But, and this is where it gets complicated, the sheet music, which was published in 1916 when the show was on Broadway, makes it very plain that the songs were written both by Cole Porter and T. Lorison Riggs. So it's not clear if it was a rare collaboration by Cole Porter on a song and lyric, or whether, and I think this is more likely, Riggs got a credit for the song on the sheet music because he was the originator of the book for See America First, and of course also on their previous collaboration Paranoia, from where the song originally came. I think it's a case of you pay your money and you take your choice. But having looked into it, I've come to the conclusion that it is probably a sole Cole Porter number, and one of the earliest of his canon to still be around. And it's a good song. It's very funny. Find it, listen to it, and enjoy it. And in a way, it provides me with a rather excellent link to the next thing we're going to be talking about, a show called The Shot Heard Round the World, in this case referring to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and which of course sadly triggered the First World War, which in Europe started in 1914, the very year that Cole Porter and T. Lorison Riggs were writing Paranoia for Yale University. There's your link. And here's another. It's written by 3 extremely talented young people called Amy Scott, Beth King and Lily Williams, currently students. They could be tomorrow's Colette Porters. So in just a minute we'll hear a conversation with Amy, Beth and Lily as we talk about their show. And during that conversation you'll hear me referring to some of the subtleties and cleverness of the score, including 2 songs which had similar titles which represented 2 different stages in the life of our central protagonist, who's called Gavrilo Princip, or Princip depending on how you want to pronounce it, who was the actual assassin of the Archduke. The version you'll hear after the conversation is called First Day of Change. But to lead into it, let's hear a song called First Day of School, from the show The Shot Heard Round the World.
In the news you say I'm nervous and you probably haven't heard this, but I wear a pair of glasses and I'm not very cool. In fact, Miss and Peculiar, quiet, dismissed, I'm really the most the other kids at my first day of school. First day, I don't know anyone. First day, they're all having fun. First day, life's hello. First day, I just wanna go. First day, let me get better now. Doesn't matter anyhow, I can't wait for my last day of school.
subliminal, and that's why I've crowned myself king of the school. First day, I'm here talking to you. First day, you can be different to you. Happy with me. First day, you just took the first day. You're better now. First day, I'm not ready now. You'll be great on your first day of school. Na 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 na.
My name is Lily Williams. My name's Amy Scott.
My name is Beth King.
And we wrote the show The Shot Heard Round the World.
Now, The Shot Heard Round the World it's not quite a World War I piece, is it? But it's very much, if you like, the prequel.
Yeah.
And we know it's not going to end well. But would you care just to give us briefly, between the three of you, as the creators of that piece, a quick thumbnail sketch of what it's about?
Well, it sort of outlines the life of Gavrilo Princip, who was the revolutionary that shot Archduke Franz Ferdinand starting the First World War. It's not a totally true story. We made it a bit more theatrical by adding in a love interest and, making it a bit more dramatic. But the general sort of premise is that it follows a true story and how one moment can change the course of history, basically.
It's hinge politics, in fact, isn't it? It's
it
that
is.
sense of one action has effects
Knock-on
well
effects.
beyond. Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, that's the elephant in the room, isn't it? Because there's one beautiful line which comes from the chief of police about saying how much blood you have in your hands, for example.
Yeah.
And it isn't just the assassination of the Archduke and indeed his wife. It's the whole First World War and the appalling loss of life that comes from that. But I like the fact you don't overplay that at all. You keep that very nicely contextual, which actually I think gives the story a bit more power. But let's talk first, if I may say, about the genesis of the story from your point of view. I should say, much of the advertising has made it plain that you are young composers, and so you are. But I think we're patronising to bang on about that, because I know so many people who will have spoken to you about this will have probably done so. I'd actually quite like to talk about the piece, because it's an extremely accomplished piece of work in its own right, which is why I'm talking to you. It's full of flourishes as well. So I'd like to get on to some of the detail in a minute, but I'd like to set up how we got to where we are now in Edinburgh 2016.
So basically, we wrote the musical two years ago now.
For the centenary, I'm guessing, of
For the
the
centenary of World
anniversary.
War One,
Yes,
yeah.
right.
And we'd always had a dream to write a musical, and
Sorry, I had a dream. That's already been taken as a song.
and then we were lucky enough to put it on as a production 2 years ago.
And was this at school, if you don't
It
mind me
was
saying?
it was at school. So we were extremely lucky that the school said to us, you can put it on as the main production of the year, and we had a larger cast. It was a larger production. It was 2.5 hours long, as opposed to this 1 hour.
Yeah. So it was a full. I mean,
It
you
was a
reduced
full
it for
show.
Edinburgh, as everybody does, of course. Yeah,
Exactly. And then, at the time, we sort of suggested talking about maybe going up to Edinburgh with it, but it was at the time sort of an unattainable dream, and we thought that's just not realistic.
I'm sure the unattainable dream is the name of the song as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, so we just thought that it's probably not going to happen. And then I think just over the last year, we'd been talking more about it and just thought, actually, no, we really want to do this. Let's give it a go.
So have you revisited the piece? Because I can understand, forgive me, it is one thing. A 2.5 hour show is a big ask anyway. And so you wrote that a couple of years ago. But as I say, I appreciate that it takes time to generate the enthusiasm, the energy, and I have to say the money, as well as people who are prepared to give up time to come to Edinburgh, because it's a big ask, isn't it?
It's a huge project.
As a piece, have you developed it? Did you say, right, we're going to look at this again, not just for to cut it down so it fits the slots, but actually, have you been revising the piece, taking it further, or are you actually, is it more or less there, actually, do you think? Because, as I say, it's accomplished, so it's perfectly legitimate to say, actually, no, it's a fully formed baby.
I think
we wouldn't say that it was completely finished.
Yeah.
We would always be open to criticism for it, and what we want someone to see is the potential in it, because we do believe like it's a strange concept for a musical, but it's one that works, and it's actually quite current in today. Like the idea of one moment can change the history of forever,
and the idea of loving your country so much that you would be prepared to
do terrible acts.
Do terrible acts.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah, so I think we just believe that it has potential, and we'd love to revisit it. We didn't have that much time to revisit it before Edinburgh.
By the way, that makes you absolutely standard professionals, because everybody says that to me. Oh, we only had 3 weeks to sort it out.
Yeah,
yeah, basically.
Yeah, but we did.
Because we all study in different places.
Yeah.
So you're all at university now, are you?
Yes.
Oh, right. Well, fortunately, the world's moved on, hasn't it? Because being physically apart doesn't actually stop anyone necessarily collaborating.
exactly.
Just
Yeah,
a little bit awkward, but
Weekly
yeah.
Skype meetings
exactly.
and sorting stuff over emails,
Is it rude to ask what you're reading, by the way, at university each? Any of you doing drama or composition or anything exciting like that?
So I'm doing
All that.
drama.
I'm doing English and drama.
And I'm doing music.
Well, there we are.
There you go. Perfect trio.
It's almost like you might want to carry on working with me. So when was the decision made that you would come to Edinburgh? Because, as I say, there's such a weight of difficulty in that decision.
Yeah.
It's easy to say, it's very difficult to do.
I think the person that's done PR for our show, who's one of our best friends, she came up to the Fringe last year, and I just remember being on a phone call with her, and she said the shot would be perfect here. Like, I can just see our posters, I can see our flyers standing out. Like, I really think we should do this. And we were ummed and ahed about it, and I think it was probably about Christmas.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Christmas.
We just thought, like, we need to make a decision, and like, we're just going to go for this and say, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I remember exactly where we were as well. We were in Lily's kitchen, and it was literally like, okay, it's a yes or no thing, and we're both just going to say it on the count of 3, and then we all said yes, and we were like, sort of.
And there's 3 of you, so even if you always have a majority vote amongst you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. It's
really
easy.
good way of making decisions between the 3 of you. I like that. But let's talk now about the piece itself, because that is why I'm talking to you. It's very accomplished. It's very accomplished. I think the score in particular, the music and the lyrics work brilliantly. The story also works very well, but of course you're borrowing a little bit from reality, as you said. I appreciate you dramatised his life.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a structural problem in terms of narrative first.
Okay.
He is a freedom fighter.
Yeah.
One person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist. He's therefore not in himself a sympathetic character. He's also not been handed down to history as somebody much revered. In fact, everyone appreciates that actually it was an accident waiting to happen, if I can so trivialise the First World War, and he just happened to have been the trigger point.
Yeah.
But he's not being remembered positively. He can only be remembered negatively. Does that give you a difficulty in terms of sympathy and empathy for a central character? By the way, this isn't a trick question. Because there are plenty of musicals where you don't much like the central character, or at least the central character isn't immediately appealing.
I think the main message that we wanted, especially which is very current now, is that you see all of these things in the media, and we as a society immediately judge someone based on what they are involved in or what they're doing. And I think with this sort of the general sort of meaning behind the whole musical is there is 2 sides to every story. I'm not trying to say that what you're doing
We're
is
not
right.
defending.
But,
No,
obviously not. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings,
and everyone believes in what they believe in, even if we would consider it to be absolutely beyond the pale.
Exactly.
They believe in what they believe in sincerely.
Yeah.
And if they believe in it sincerely, then it at least has. I'm not saying it has. Yes, it's a difficult thing to describe, isn't it?
Yeah,
but yes,
yeah.
but everyone's position, if they hold it
Yeah.
sincerely, has to at least be addressed in some rational way.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think you personalise the life of someone who is kind of just a figure. He's never been. No one's
He's not
ever
a good
known.
guy. He's not a bad guy. That's
no
why
one
he's
ever
not
knows
a good
anything
guy.
about him, and so.
Well, yes, he's a remarkably underwritten character
Yeah.
in real life, isn't he? Because
Yeah.
actually he did sort of rise from obscurity.
Yeah.
And indeed, am I not right in thinking that actually his final demise sort of isn't quite known? They know he was locked up after the
just
beginning of the
died
First
in
World War.
prison.
And
Yeah, he just died in prison.
Yeah, but no one quite knows how, do they? Was
Yeah.
it natural? And he was a young man.
Yeah, I
would
think he
have
died of
He
tuberculosis.
was young.
Yeah.
He was
Well, that could be the
just
official
about,
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just about too young to have the death row punishment.
Yeah.
So.
But
yeah.
still he died.
Yes,
so,
he
He
yeah,
did
it's
die.
right.
So yeah.
But
No.
did you feel that there was any sense that when you were dramatising him, that you needed to be, and once again, there's no right or wrong to this, but you had to be careful not to make him too sympathetic or not too evil. I mean, I like this fact that you were trying to find the balance, that because he had these sincere beliefs, you had to reflect that. But is there a danger of a hagiography, making someone better than they actually were, or vice versa?
Yeah, definitely. And you have, if you look at the tragedy of World War One, you can't you can't be really sympathising with the man who effectively triggered it.
Yeah.
So you do have to be really careful. But I think we should portray the guilt that he felt, like that his one shot, he didn't know that it would trigger a whole world war.
That's what the whole opening number is about, the fact that he's just like torn up by the guilt and he just had no idea what
he's made things worse rather than better.
Yeah,
exactly.
And for many
none
more
of them
people.
could have foreseen that
No, of
that was
course.
going to happen.
So, can I ask how you allocate the work between you? Is it simply one of you does music, one of you does lyrics, one of you does book, or are you a homogenous form who works organically?
No, I think, well, it helps that we've been, to sound very cheesy and cliche, best friends
I'm
for
your man
about
for that.
yeah, we've been very close friends for 14 years.
Yeah.
So we all sort of just merge into one like big creative energy. I don't think there was a specific person that took on different things. I think we all wanted to be like a group thing, something we wanted to do together and combine all our own talents, and our own like special like personality traits or whatever.
I think we're all talented in different areas, but we worked together and like used each other, so it wasn't one person did all of this, one person did all of
You
this.
didn't delineate.
No.
So it's a fusion work in that sense.
Yeah,
Because
completely.
I'm wondering,
Collaborative.
because there are all these flourishes, I've said that already, and those are the things which I think really mark it out as something slightly beyond the ordinary, because it's impressive. And I just want to pick up one or two that I was, I've not seen this before, I've not heard it before, so this is just my first viewing this afternoon. But there are some lovely, I'm going to be looking at the score principally, I think, but you've got your opening number, then you have that, there's a score number, which is very good and very entertaining, and actually sets the tone immediately. You've had the very serious opening number, as you would, in the prison cell looking back going, oh, what have I done? And then you've got the first day at school,
exactly.
essentially, and I like that, but you're clever with that song, because that song then is used again thematically later on when it's his first day in the Bosnian nationalist organisation.
Yeah.
You've also got that very lovely thing when you've got the parallel, the lessons with girls and the lessons for nationalism, essentially. You've got the first thing you do with girls is this, the second thing you do with girls is this, the third thing you do with girls is this, and then at the same time, that's for Franco, the Franco character, and then of course you've got the Gavrilo character, our protagonist, for want of a better word. He's having his lessons on how to become a nationalist within that nationalist organisation, and the first thing you do is this, and the second thing we're going to do is protests and leaflets, and I love that parallel, and these are rather wonderful things. Later on, you've got that sort of quite towards the end, you've got the phalanx of policemen, and you've got your sort of revolutionaries on the other side, and there's that moment where I think the lyric is something like, I did what I think was, and then the soldiers all say, right, we're going to do this, and so you're using the word right as a pivot between one sequence and the other. These very accomplished bits and pieces, very impressive. How did you come to build them? Did you write the script and everything and then start marrying it together? Did it come at the time you were creating? Have you had sort of dramaturgical help? Have other people come in and said, oh, you could link that with that? Or is it something you yourself sit down, fresh eyes, and say, right, now we can make these links? Forgive me, tell me.
It was very much, we did it all together. We didn't get any other professional help. Someone asked me this the other day, like, what was your structure to it? It was so long ago, I can't. It just sort of seemed to form. I think we got.
You're supposed to now put your hand in the air and go, 30 years in the business.
But I think we did write like an outline of a script first, and then wrote songs to do with sections in the script that we thought would go
we had
well.
ideas of what songs we wanted where in the piece, and
You worked out what your nexus points were, where a
exactly.
song
So what
was
they were going to
deserved.
describe, or what part of the story they were going to tell. And then,
like for that part you were talking about, first day of school going into first day of change, we were like, okay, let's do a montage from where he goes from a school kid wanting to learn how to talk to girls to this revolutionary wanting to assassinate the Archduke. We were like, okay, that's going to be a good song.
That's a number of steps, isn't it?
But we literally just in the script just put montage.
And then left it for ages and didn't come back.
We'll sort that later.
Yeah, exactly. There were a lot of moments like that.
We did, and then we had even started rehearsals before we finished writing some of the music.
It's a well-worn road, that, if I'm
It was, so it was definitely like we'd never done anything like this before, and I think ideas just came to us as we went, and we didn't know what to expect, but we actually loved every single minute of writing with each other.
It was amazing.
I love that developmental thing, but how exactly then let's take the song with the right. Did that happen when you were writing it? Did you say, actually, we can make the lyrics go from here, zip across the stage almost, not directorially, I just mean, one group will say this and we'll make sure that those lyrics then flow immediately into those ones with a linking word?
Yeah,
or did one of you just stumble on it
idea,
and say, this will be a cracking thing?
That was the idea.
Yeah, I think we wrote
so you
that
really
song.
planned it?
Yeah,
very good.
We knew that we wanted a song with the two contrasting sides.
Yeah, and
so then whilst
especially
we were writing it, we thought.
Yeah, and as Franco, we wanted to show that he had such a split mind because his loyalty's lying with both things. He's lying to his best friend and he's also working for the police. So we wanted to sort of show his sort of manic mindset by having two people interrupting each other, and then at the end when Apis, the leader of the revolutionaries, and then Christoph, the leader of the police, they both put their hands on his shoulder and he has that
Who does
solo.
he belong to?
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, well, directorially it's very interesting as well. I mean, there's never a dull moment. It doesn't stop. So often you see plays where scenery changes take place and there's a dead second or two. But that doesn't happen here. People are in and out. You've got the pace right. So did you direct it yourselves as well?
Yeah.
Good Lord, you are the sort of the quadruple threat then. If you've written, lyricised, composed, and directed this piece, that's really quite remarkable.
Thank you.
But it's stylishly done as well, as I say, and you draw the eye to where the eye needs to be drawn.
Yeah.
Your performances are very good as well. How did you cast this version? I take it's not the same cast as you had a couple of years ago.
No,
because you've got different age ranges as well. Haven't
Yeah, we do have a couple of old cast members from the original show, but because we had so much fun doing it 2 years ago, then they wanted to come back and do it again. But we've also got people from our universities that we've met this year, other friends from home and stuff that wanted to get involved. But we know some very musically talented people, we're lucky enough to say, so they've just come back and help us, basically.
Is it rude to ask which universities you're at, by the way?
Yeah. I'm at Birmingham University.
I'm at Exeter.
I'm at Berklee College of Music, which is in Boston.
The only one... Oh, right, you're abroad.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Because there's a Boston in Yorkshire as well. So.
No, that's not that one.
I was just going to say, of the three, I only really know anything about Exeter, and I know you have a fantastic Gilbert and Sullivan Society down there, and a lot of Fringe people from Exeter and former Exeter people are up here in Edinburgh this year. So
I keep running into people from uni everywhere. Yeah,
you can't help it.
Big presence here.
So you sort of fished around from your own social pools and things like that, and you found take-up with positive? I'm sure you did.
Yeah. I mean, and it's quite cool because all of the cast are so young. A lot of them are so young. Like, we have a range from age 13 to 22.
Good Lord, really?
So, I mean, they all love each other and work together, and they're all amateur performers, but, a lot of them are aspiring actors. So.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you can see some poise in one or two people.
Yeah.
You can see them and think, I think you might be going somewhere.
Yeah,
exactly.
Your orchestra's very good as well. It's not big, is it, by any means, but it's got a good, rich sound. I love your use of brass.
Yeah, I love the brass section.
Well, there's one song, and it's quite early on, but that brass really fills the room. I don't mean in a raucous way, as in a rich, toneful way as well. So let's talk about your musical style, if I may, because musical talk really ought to talk about the score. The score is very accomplished. I'm getting certain tones. I would have said, actually, I'm not one of these people who thinks that a show set in time has to have music from that time. I think that's a very limiting thing. It means any play you want to do about the 18th century has to be full of harpsichord, which is a very difficult thing to deal with. So I don't in any way say that, why should this sound like the Art Nouveau period? Why should it sound like the Edwardian era? It did, however, remind me very much of the 40s in some sense. I think you've got quite an ear for classic 40s songs, 30s, 40s songs. In fact, you've written one specifically, isn't there? There is the dance sequence. And your chanteuse sings what I would think would be it's a real, well, to me, the way it sounds at least, it's a real 1940s sort of slow torch song kind of thing. Was that your intention, or is that just a natural interest you have yourselves? I mean, I suppose this question is, how do you pick your tone in terms of music, and what are your own personal influences?
I think we sort of just read the tone of what they were trying to say in the song. So there's a song called Lives of Wives, which is very kind of 50s, because they're saying about like how they're sort of stuck at home with the kids instead of going out. And we just thought it would
Our man's out doing what he does.
Exactly. And I think for that, we thought it would be like, it's a comical moment in quite a dark piece, so it was very important. And we thought it would just be...
You do need that texture though, don't you?
Exactly.
You really do.
You need that sort of rise and fall, otherwise the audience just,
Sondheim
it's too
does
intense.
If it's good enough for Sondheim.
Exactly.
We thought, we thought we actually kind of wanted to take some stuff from around like 30s, kind of, even a bit before, just 20s. So that number in the Speakeasy was sort of meant to be like a jazzy sort of slow dance number, but then we love the musical Les Mis, and so we wanted big impassioned numbers as well.
Well, you put a flag in, for goodness sake.
Had to have a few flags in there.
I spotted the flag.
So I don't know, we wanted it to be a big Like we want to be a musical that
Yeah.
gets
Rousing.
people going.
Empowered.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I appreciate it's not about the First World War, it's about the build-up to the First World War, but and you could do it as a chamber piece, but it doesn't feel like it should be done as a chamber piece, does it?
Yeah.
It is about people and a mass movement and
Yeah.
one side and the other, because we should forget, although Serbian nationalism was a popular uprising in its way, so was the stability of the Austrian Empire. You know, it was an established empire. I mean, it may have been on its last legs, but it would have lasted a bit longer if we hadn't had the First World War, I have no doubt.
Yeah.
So... You're right to go for the size and feel. I like that. I want to ask you more questions about the songs, though, if I may, because back to the Shantuzi number, I'm calling it, the speakeasy number.
Yeah.
Your orchestrations, your arrangements, is that something you've all done together as well? Or one of you specialised in that slightly more? I'll tell you why, and this may just have been my ear picking out things unexpectedly, but I think I heard very subliminally sort of Vera Lynn's We'll Meet Again subtexting in that, ever so slightly. And as the lyrics are all about that long wait,
Yeah.
you know, it is about waiting for the one you love. And of course, so is We'll Meet Again. That's absolutely there. And I thought, well, there's a nice little sort of, I mean, it was very subtle and very gentle, if it's there at all, but it seemed to me a very gentle fuging of one with the other to underscore and contextualise that piece even more firmly.
I think we wanted to be a very subtle nod to that song.
And
We
it is,
did have that
it's-
in mind
it's-
when we...
It is only a subtle nod.
No,
Yeah.
I hope so. But we obviously didn't base it on that song. But
No.
it was just that sort of feeling of longing and feeling of, you know, abandonment and sadness that is so powerful, obviously, in that original We'll Meet Again song. So I think it was just like a subtle nod to that one.
Actually.
It's also, I have to say, it's a nod forward, isn't it, to the First World War environment of,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
even keep the home fires burning, you know,
Yeah.
keep your heart sturdy whilst the boys are out fighting, which is the central message of that, you know. But that's actually about... We'll Meet Again is an unusual speech marks anthem for a war because it's actually about separation and loss, and it's not actually about the fighting at all. It's not nationalistic. It's a very odd song. That.
Yeah.
And so yearning and loss and separation is such an important part of war, and the First World War saw that more than almost any other war because of the length and the much higher mortality rates. So I do love all these little nods that you put in. Were there any other songs that you've, I do just mean flavoured with rather than anything else?
I don't know, maybe subconsciously
Yes, of course.
we've been influenced by, our favourite musicals, but I don't think there are... I think maybe the only one I can think of is the beginning song, that sort of low chant was a bit like Les Mis at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I think because it's such a strong opening and you want to just portray that sort of sense of desperation, and so I think we just wanted one like that.
I'm not in any way suggesting you're borrowing from these things. It's just
No,
the
just
flavour,
influence.
and of course we are all the sum of our cultural
definitely.
influences.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned Les Mis. Are there any other? If I said to you, if I just met you in the street and we were having on the Mile, which is where everyone has random conversations, and someone said, "Oh well, what kind of music? What kind of musical theatre music were you sort of raised on, or have you found for yourselves, or you listen to when no one else is around?" This could be a confession.
We really tried to make it like our own, and not saying that we also
of course.
have a style of musical theatre, but I actually really do think that it's a kind of like an original piece. We wanted to be original musical, so we wanted to stand out from every other kind of musical theatre, but because we have such mix and match of different sort of styles and contexts and stuff like that, I think we sort of did try and make it our own.
Yeah.
But,
Oh yes, no doubt about that at all.
But Les Mis probably was the big one.
It is the mothership of musical theatre in many
It
ways,
is, yeah.
and it's for many people. It's the first one in. That's the doors open to Les Mis, and then after that you're on you're set on your path somewhere.
But I also love Gershwin's first musicals in Broadway, like Porgy and Bess and all those sorts of stuff. All that
The
sort of
semi-operatic musicals.
yeah,
as well,
and
then, I
the
see.
jazzy sort of feel that was in them. They were really the first big musical opera sort of numbers. So
Forgive me, you're talking my language, because if anyone were forcing me into my favourite era of music, it would be the 20s and 30s, which is absolutely Gershwin, Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hart, people like that. So and it's so smart as well, all that stuff as well. So that's lovely. So, how is it being received here in Edinburgh? The Shot. Is it being heard across the city?
I think it's actually gone down really well. The public that
well.
we've heard, coming out of the show have really enjoyed it. We got really lovely words from lots of lovely reviewers across the Fringe, and so I think it's been going down quite well.
Yeah,
It's been going down very well with our parents, obviously.
Oh, well, I met one of your mothers, the lady in the
so
blue
nice.
dress.
Yeah,
She's absolutely charming. And when I said I was already coming, There's a look of delight in her eyes, I must say.
It's so competitive here, so whenever anyone ever says like, "Oh, I'm just coming already," it's like, really? Oh, okay.
Hey, you heard?
Yeah, we love it.
Well, word of mouth is the way to do it here in Edinburgh,
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
isn't it? Yes, it really is.
Yeah.
And
Go
yeah, it's
on,
our
please.
first Fringe, so we were all a bit like worried about what was going to happen.
Yeah,
But-
because I think it's a lot easier if you've already got a Fringe presence, like you're a company that's taken up things like a couple of years in a row. So
You
then
also
you've
become
got
aware of it yourself
yeah,
as well.
exactly.
It
You're
becomes less
aware
of a
of it,
slog.
and you've kind of just got like people know about you a bit
Yeah.
more. So we were just like throwing ourselves in the deep end.
You've done the mile, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we've done
We've
the mile.
done the
We've
mile.
done the
Back
mile.
and forth.
We've done the mile.
We've buffed,
It's a slog,
we've
isn't it, though?
flyers.
It is a little bit of a
It's
slog.
tiring, and I think the whole cast is now getting to the end of the run. Like, wow, this has been hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's been
Getting
worth
audiences.
it though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been getting good audiences.
You're not
so-
sitting in a room with 6 people.
No.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. That was
know.
that was our fear before we came up. We
Yeah.
were like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
It
please
has happened,
no.
I can
Yeah.
assure you.
I remember the first day that we did it. We were all like, okay, we were preparing the cast. We were like, listen, we might have a cast of 5, but that's just the way it is. And then we got like a cast of 85.
mean
and we
an
were like,
audience.
so yeah. Oh, sorry, I mean an audience.
Yeah. But yes, you're right.
And it was just so overwhelming. And
Yeah, it was
since then, it's
amazing.
just been like, yeah, a journey.
And does it pick up at the weekends? Because, as you know, Edinburgh floods at the weekend with people coming in for that, those couple
Yeah,
of days.
those were our
Weekend slots, yeah.
busiest ones I think last weekend.
But today's Thursday, and you were by no means a slouch of an audience, was
No,
it?
it was good. Probably 50 or so in there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
an appreciating audience as well.
Yeah,
They enjoyed it,
exactly.
which was really nice.
Yeah.
So, the question, therefore, is what next for the shot?
Well, I think for the shot, we'll always like have a place for it because it's our first musical.
Well, you mustn't
that
say
we've
I have a
ever
place for it in my heart because you'll be shot in the heart.
I know. I didn't want to say that because it
Yes,
sounds so
yes.
cheesy, but like it's been our first thing that we've all done together,
Yeah.
and I think we work so well together as friends and also as composers and writers and directors. And I think we just need to keep writing new things, keep like
That difficult
on-
second album.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully it will be just as enjoyable as the first experience.
So you are intending to write again?
I
I
think
hope so. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, you must.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me saying, if coming in with this is where you are, then yes, you really ought. Because,
Yeah.
as I say, so much of the success of this piece is you've got all the basics right, but you haven't rested on those laurels.
Yeah.
You have taken those basics and you have built upon it. So, as I say, there are flourishes and swags and frills and loops and lovely things that make it better than. I don't want to. A basically well-written play is a great thing in its own right, but to
Yeah.
add those extra things successfully, you're just adding value, you're just adding colour. It's
Yeah.
a good, accomplished piece, and that's really all I can say. It's an excellent, and it feels fully formed. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
well, I'm delighted to hear that there is at least 2, but possibly 28 new musicals in you. So I'll come and see you again in 40 years' time when you're all dames of the British Empire.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yes, for services to musical theatre, obviously. Now, of course, there will be people across the country who have foolishly not come to the festival this year and therefore
Yeah.
won't have had a chance to see this show, unless they were in Brighton when you originally did it a couple of
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago. So, but I think you have a website. So how can people sort of see that and get in contact with you?
Yeah, we do have a website. It's really easy to get onto. It's just theshotmusical.com.
Theshotmusical.com.
Yeah. We've also got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media, all just the Shot Musical.
And the
So
songs
easy
can be
to
heard on
find.
your website, I think.
Yeah,
Is that
we've
correct?
got there's a tab of music, and we've got a SoundCloud account which is all on the website, so you can listen to the whole album.
Oh, fantastic. It's
free.
very good, yeah. But it's very good of you to release that into the public domain. It's a really good way of getting your name out there, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's good for people to be able to hear it.
But seriously, I look forward to seeing your future work again. And thank you so
you.
much for talking to me. It's
Thank
been
you
a
so
wonderful thing
much.
to see
Thank
your
you.
piece.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Now I understand you're having some problems with the girls, but these problems have an answer, and the answers have some rules to follow. First things first, Gavrilo, simply follow me. If you want to learn to get a girl, then confidence is key. Step 1, you've got to make her smile. Step 2, you make her laugh. Step 3, act mean and distant, do this on my behalf. Step 4, you serenade her, then take her on a date. Make sure you don't come off too keen, make sure you're not late.
But how can I do this? Why even try? The last time I tried this, I made a girl cry. It's easy for you, you have charm and affection, but last time I checked, I don't have your complexion.
First date.
Do you think I'll ever get
First
one?
date.
I'm not the charming one.
First date.
I'll always be alone.
First date.
I'm just gonna go home.
It's gonna get better now.
It don't matter anyhow.
You'll be great on your first dates.
Can't wait. Now listen up and look at me. We need another plan. Our recent missions didn't work and numbers seem quite down. Does anybody have any ideas?
Step 1 will bomb the country. Step 2 will go on strike. Step 3 will make you minister. Through weapons and the like.
No. Well, I would hand out leaflets, posters and the rest, and then I'd cause some chaos through marches and protest. Milan, who is this boy? He has fresh new ideas. Haven't seen so much gumption in quite a few years.
But who even are you?
The protests ago.
And what shall we call you?
My name is Gavrilo.
But you've got to be willing. Got to be willing to fight.
Yes, I think I am willing to fight for this right. First day.
You need to be honest and
First
trust.
day.
If you want to be one of us.
First day.
Fight for the right to be
First
free.
day.
And soon you will
First
see
day.
that all of these people in
First
power
day.
are wasting their time by the hour.
First
We can't wait for the
day.
of change. You need to be honest and trust. If you want to be one of us. Fight for the right to be free. And soon you will see that all of these people in power are wasting their time by the hour. We can't wait for the first day.
Step 1 will bomb the country. Step 2 will go on strike. Step 3 will make you minister through weapons and the like. Well, I would hand out leaflets, posters and the rest. We can't wait for the first day of change.
Well, there we are, the shot heard round the world. And to find out more, do go along to their website, theshotmusical.com, where you can also hear all of the score. It's well worth doing. But for now, that's the end of this episode of Musical Talk. It's been jam-packed with songs, it's been jam-packed with conversation, and I hope jam-packed full of interest. That's quite a lot of jam. And of course it's preserved, on iTunes and our website for you to hear into the future. But for now, it's very nearly time to say goodbye. But there's just time to give you an update on 2 of the shows that were up at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe this year and which I enjoyed immensely, both 5-star shows which have come to London. So if you want to see the hilarious 5-star show Apocalypse Cruise Ship Love Affair, then you can do so because it's at the theatre known as Above the Arts, which is in Great Newport Street, literally a stone's throw from Leicester Square Tube Station, although I strongly suggest avoiding throwing projectiles in a crowded area. And that's on between the 25th and 29th of October for a 7:30 in the evening performance. The show itself is only about an hour and 15, something like that. So it's a wonderful way of finishing your day after work or having a warm-up before you go to dinner or drinks. And we'll be hearing an in-depth conversation with 2 of the people involved with that show, Theo McCabe and Craig Methan, in next week's episode of Musical Talk. So I hope that'll also excite you into going to see it. And another great show which we loved here on Musical Talk, and indeed was our pick of the Fringe, was Royal Vauxhall, a fantastically tuneful, funny and very touching musical show about the day that Kenny Everett, Freddie Mercury and Diana, Princess of Wales, went in disguise to the Royal Vauxhall Tavern gay pub in the 1980s. That has 4 more performances left in London at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern itself, and so you can see it on the 26th of October, the 16th, the 23rd and the 24th of November. And those performances are at 8 o'clock in the evening. So go along to the Vauxhall Tavern website for more details. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is this week's episode of Musical Talk. And if that's not a cue for me to stop talking, then what is? And in Britain we love cues, ha! So I'm going to take mine now and say goodbye. And I leave you with one final song from The Shot Heard Round the World. Goodbye.
Someone once told me that the world was black and white, that the rivers met the oceans, that the sun would set and rise. But I have come to know that's just what they say. The world is kind of grey. Sometimes a heart sees what can't be seen by the eye, like a war that can't be won, like the day without the night. But love's made me a fool. How could it be so cruel? I've been waiting for so long, and I'm still waiting, and I'll keep waiting on your call. Someone once told me, don't let yourself be loved. If your walls fall, then you've lost all. Transgression has begun. Surrender of your pride, just let it go. You've put on quite a I've been waiting for so long, and I'm still waiting, and I'll keep waiting on your call. Can't you see it's not me, and I'm still waiting. I'll keep waiting on your call. I know that the day will come. I know that it won't be long. I knew when I met you that you'd be all I need. I've been waiting for so long, and I'm still waiting. I'll keep waiting on your call.
This episode of Musical Talk, edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2016, except for the songs where the copyright remains with the original creators. And my thanks to them all for allowing me to play so many of their wonderful songs in this episode. To find out more about the world of Musical Talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our brand new website, musicaltalkpodcast.weebly.com. Or subscribe to us on iTunes. And follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, @MusicalTalkThos. What I'm going to ask you just a little bit in as well, and
Okay.
possibly just a little bit louder.
Yeah,
and then I
sure.
think we're about right, and then I'll all huddle in as well, because
Okay.
there is hubbub.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hubbub is fine. All interviews in Edinburgh have hubbub. There's really no
Yeah,
avoiding
yeah.
it. Unless someone's playing the trombone, it's really... it all adds to the atmosphere.